Hey guys, what's up? Matt and James here. Welcome to the episode of Coffee is for Closers. Today, what we're going to be talking about is the reason why most coaching businesses or business in the coaching and consulting space hit plateaus of around $50,000, $100,000, and $300,000 a month.
Why is that, Matthew?
I don't know. Let's explore today, Jimothy.
Good. Cue the introduction.
On the introduction.
If you listen to this podcast, you will make your first million within 3 years. I'm going to repeat that. You will make $1 million within 3 years of the first episode you listen to. We don't want pikers. We're not here to save the manatees. We're here to make podcasts. You really want this. You listen and review.
Put that coffee down.
All right. So we've been in the coaching game for a while now, in the coaching and consulting space, fun space, whatever. And what we've sort of noticed is that there are these nexus points. And this is interesting to know both from a business owner and from a salesperson perspective, because you might realize that there might not be a future in the business that you're currently selling for.
Yeah. It's very good to identify this as as sales guys and see where the warning signs are.
Yeah.
So that you can either haul in or find an exit strategy.
Yeah. But also I want to press this by not every business wants to go past some of these.
Correct.
If you can get a business to $300,000 a month, but running at a 50% profit margin, and as the business owner take out $100K a month, there's not going to be much motivation for you to go further than that. Right. Which is totally fair. Right. Now, the frustrating part from a salesperson and even someone who's working in the business is when the business owner is constantly talking about scaling, but then never relinquishing the profit required to build the infrastructure to scale. Yeah. That is frustrating. And if you are in that kind of situation at the moment, you need to figure out if you really want to stay there.
Yeah.
Because that business owner has figured out where they're happy. They may not be saying it, but they're not going to move.
Yeah. And it's, it becomes a larger frustration, particularly when you're incentivized by that growth and scale and your income is tied to the business growing.
Yeah.
Right. This is a fun subject.
Yeah. So I would say one of the first ones is, everyone wants to get to $30,000 a month. That seems to be a number that's thrown around a lot. $30,000 seems to be a milestone. The next one then is $100,000 a month. Then it's 300 to jump. It's always, no one's I want to get to 200. Everyone's if you're at 50, you want to get to 100. If you're 100, you want to get to 300.
I think you've missed the 10K a month.
Yeah, 10K a month.
Just because I've got 300 people offering me ways to get to 10K a month in my inbox right now.
Is that with a business or by themselves?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really.
Yeah. So I'm talking.
It's not very clear.
Yeah. It's with Forex. Yeah.
Yeah, just nexus point. I've always called them black holes. So it's interesting. I don't know where the vernacular comes from. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's not that funny, actually. It's quite boring.
I'll shut up now.
But you're going to have to listen regardless.
Yeah.
So who's joking now?
As the Army told me, you joined us, but we didn't join you.
Yeah.
Take that pineapple.
Yeah. So 30K, 100K, 300K.
Yeah.
There's a few more after that, but it's we'll save those.
Then it's 500, then it's $1 million.
I'd say 650.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a hill to die on, but yeah, fair enough.
650.
Yeah.
Is it typically just
I was pretty stoked when we got $2 million a month.
1.3 times.
I was pretty stoked.
And funnily enough, I've not experienced it, but a lot of those nexus points happen up well and truly past those points, all the way up to, $100 million. There's always black holes or nexus points in business. And it's really funny. It's right before you go into, you hit that point, profit margin is at its highest. And the reason why people typically don't push through them is because you have to add in significantly more infrastructure to push past that revenue point, which tanks profit margins. So I think a lot of business owners get stuck in well, I'm making all this money now. Why would I want to mess with that? See my profit margins go down with no guarantee of us getting to that next point where the profit.
It's totally fair.
And that's where you evaluate, like as a sales guy, does the guy that I'm working with have balls? Because if the answer is no, like they're never going to take those action points to get through the next step. And it's super evident with recruitment and who they're bringing on, what roles they're putting people into, because you can always, like if you see someone in your business recruiting particularly higher level staff, you can always look on recruiting websites to see what the understanding of like a typical wage for that type of person is. And if they're big wages, typically they're prepared to go to that next level. If they're hiring VAs and stuff at those, 300K marks to fulfill important roles, chances are they're protecting profits and aren't looking to actually scale.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the big thing is infrastructure versus income.
Yep.
And so in order to grow, you need to have more infrastructure than you need to have an overestimated amount of infrastructure for the amount of revenue you have coming in.
Yeah.
Because if you try and grow it like one for one, it's impossible, right? Like you because you like hire someone like, so if the business owner that you're talking about, or if you have a business owner doing this, if you're always talking about scale and you're always talking about the marketing funnels, right? It's like, well, no, it's like, because you need to like assume, this is where the ballsy part comes in, that your sales and marketing funnels will work.
Yep.
And then you have to infrastructure your operations and delivery departments to be able to withstand the influx of new people when your sales and marketing works.
Yeah.
The hard part is balancing that enough to where you don't over infrastructure so much that if something there's no money to spend on marketing, but also if it doesn't work, you got a business.
And then there's no budget left to throw money at people to fix the problems.
Yeah. Which is where capital raising comes in place.
Yeah.
So like if you really want to scale, scaling through profit is difficult, right? We haven't raised any money yet because we're, as our accountant told me, we're somewhat cash overburdened at the moment with cash, right?
You could recommend some things for us to buy. That'd be
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, definitely the word was over accumulating. And I was like, I disagree.
Which is interesting because
it was the opposite problem for a while.
I think we're like almost a definition of anti-frugal. It's just,
yeah. I was like, oh, I've got, X amount of money in the bank. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I have like 1 point. They were like, oh, I have too much money.
Pay some out or spend some.
Yeah. Okay. Between the businesses, it's like more than $2 million. So they were like, yeah, you can probably afford to get rid of
like
some
this month.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so actually the goal is to then, speaking of cap raising, the goal is to then what we're going to do probably is pull out $1 million and then put that into a fund. Yep. And then we'll have, we'll cap raise, the same amount. So then like when you 1-for-1, you get like 4% rates. So if we go, hey, listen, we're opening up a fund like Sniper Capital or whatever, is we go $1 million into Sniper Capital and then we raise $1 million and we have a $2 million fund to fund all the other businesses.
Yeah, and because we've got that capital there, like banks, private equity, venture capital, they're all happy to provide more money knowing that there's a safety barrier there that you're good with money.
Well, like if you're willing to put up $1 million, someone will give you $1 million.
Exactly right.
Like it's just kind of the way it is.
It's safe for them.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, if you're willing to put your own money in, then we'll put our money in, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of the plan. Kimbo spoke the other day. We'll have to have Kimbo on the podcast.
Yeah, I want to.
He ran Yamaha as well.
He can get us a bike.
I had no
How cool would a
idea.
bike look in that corner?
I think he ran the music division.
A guitar. How cool would a guitar look?
Yeah. I was at his house the other day. This is so we took on a new board member. His name's Kim, and he ran Smirnoff, Aldemec, a bunch of huge companies, and he's working on the board with us to help us scale our company, right? And this is a guy, he's scaled, exited, IPO'd, all this kind of stuff. Very, very large businesses. So it brings us a very, very unique perspective. Like that's, for example, that says multi-6-figure hire for time-wise relatively to work. But the amount of insight that we get and the ability to restructure and be able to scale the business is extraordinarily insightful to us.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
which is again is one of the reasons why none of these business owners scale their business, even though they say they want to, is because they refuse to say that they're not the best at what they do.
Yeah.
We needed help.
No, I mean,
we were good at doing a couple of things, and we needed someone to go, hey man, like if your goal is to do this, there's a lot of things that you haven't put in place.
I disagree partly, but also very heavily agree. So
we would have got there, and me and you would have been dragged to jail one day.
Yeah, absolutely. But just from not
through
being
no fault of our own,
not from like doing the wrong thing, just going, oh, I didn't know I had to pay that.
Yeah,
really? Okay, but no, I disagree in the sense that I think based on just like pure knowledge and problem solving ability, we probably would have got to where we wanted to. I think
would have been rough though.
Rough. We would have made way too many mistakes. I kind of see like mentors. A board member is really just like a mentor that's only happens when you get bigger, right? But they act as accelerant, and they act as someone to prevent you from picking up because they've made those mistakes. So I think we would have got there, just the time to do it, and in the most straightforward path possible is the difference.
It's debatable. It's the debatable fact. No, I agree. I think we would have done it, but I think we would have done it really messily and probably been ripped off along the way, because like we're paying, just for some context for people, like we're trying to scale our business to multi-millions a month. Between the businesses that we run, we're doing a few $1 million a month. Yeah. Right? So there's
not taking into account the recent acquisitions that we're about to bring on. As soon as that gets signed over, where immediate more revenue comes in.
Yeah. I don't know what the NDA says we can and can't do with that. But anyway.
Don't mention names.
You name names. But yeah, so it's a fair bit of cash. So like what we're trying to figure out is like how do we structure this properly? And so it's like from a scale perspective, we're trying to scale to, I think we kind of roughly worked out we really want to get to like 135 million a year.
Yeah. And well, what's
we can't do it with this one business.
It's impossible.
It'd be impossible.
Going back to, I don't know if we spoke about it in this podcast or the last one, that scalability only happens with multiple avenues of income. You can't do it on a single income stream. Well, I mean, maybe you could if you like Coke and you're selling Coke and take that much money.
Or you have a giant software company. For the things that we are good at, it's not feasible.
So we have to recognize every problem that our
Sales Sniper caps out at, like, man, if
3 million a month.
I think 36 million a year is like the max we could pull out from this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the one entity, we have multiple entities at the moment still running, and we have we have 7th level, Sales Sniper, Sniper Media, which is just about to launch.
Sniper Operations, which
we have the coaching company we just bought. That's already cash flowing. Operations, and then consulting, which will be TBC.
And there's plenty more ideas where that comes from.
And there's the other big acquisition that we're doing at the moment, which will be a good one.
Like to scale, multiple revenue sources are needed, which means multiple products. To do that, it needs to be transferable, right? As in, you have to utilize your client base, understand the needs of things that are going wrong in their business, and offer the solution through different entities. And
like in the previous podcast when we talked about Sam Ovens,
As you can tell, we're still in the same clothes we just did too. Yeah, going back to like that profit, like we
So it's okay. I'll kind of explain it visually. I've done a video on this.
Okay.
But essentially, if you have a look, like it sort of goes in and out like that, right? So
it's like funnels, but they're flipped up one way and stacked on top of each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you've got like infrastructure on your vertical axis, and you've got, right? So if you're not a graph, but going up, you've got infrastructure. Yeah. And then if you think of like as hourglasses with sand, right?
Yeah, that's
like
a better one.
The higher the sand is the revenue, and then the hourglass is the profit, right? So you're filling up with revenue. So you're filling the hourglass up with revenue, the sand up all the time, but it's getting constricted and then opening up. That's your profit, right? So like as you increase your infrastructure, right, your profit is constricting. But then you reach a level where your infrastructure is up here. So let's say it's $10 million a year. So you have the infrastructure for $10 million, but you only have $5 million a year revenue. That is your greatest constriction point, right? Where you have maximum infrastructure, but you haven't yet realized the revenue that will be able to utilize the infrastructure. So now you've got this like huge amount of nut, right? That you have, your monthly nut's huge, but you haven't got the income. So then what you do is you then go, okay, we've now got the capability to handle all these clients. Let's ramp it. Yeah. And then your revenue builds and then your profit margins open back up, and they open back up to the widest possible margin, right? Which is like, but depending on your model and all that kind of stuff, like let's say you have a gross profit of 75% and you have a net profit of like at its worst 5 and at its best 30.
Yeah.
Right. For those of you who don't know the difference between net and gross, is your gross is more based on your model. So it's like, what is your pricing model and how does that compare to like the cost of goods sold? Right. So you're like, you can fuck up your net through a series of bad decisions
or overspending, but
you'll really fuck your business if you don't think about your gross. Yep. Because your gross is like, what does it cost me to make a sale? Like what is that? And you need to be in like just the basic delivery mechanisms of that. You need to be in the 70s. You need to be for like, if you like, you don't have to be, but for the industry that we're in, it's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you can artificially set your profit margins by reverse engineering your budgeting to suit a specific number that you're aiming to. But like with Sales Sniper, we have that much infrastructure that the infrastructure that we have allows us to take on these other businesses without adding on staff and additional costs, because we've over-infrastructured to the point of probably 40 million.
So, it's fun.
Maybe
it's funny. Like we're over-infrastructured in some regards and under in other.
Yes. So
like right now we're under-infrastructured in middle management.
Under.
Yes.
But
from a sales rep perspective and from like a head shed perspective, we have a ton of people. So we have a ton of really expensive executives who are awesome at what they do. Right.
And that's the key to get right first, if you're willing to suffer.
Yeah. And we have a ton of really good sales reps. Yes. Right. What we don't have, and which are being trained at the moment, is the middle management layer to take the burden away from the higher level managers so they can focus more on what they need to do, which is being done at the moment. Right. Yep. But anyway, but we could take on 10 new done for you accounts that wouldn't make a difference. Right. Like we have the people, we have everything, we can do it. But yeah, so as you hit those points, so there's these really scary parts where you're like, our profit is super constricted. Now we have to go all in. So it really requires you to just go all in. But you also have to realize like, and I think a lot of it is gut feel, unfortunately. I'm sure it shouldn't be, but it's like, with the people that we have, what we're actually doing, how much can we actually handle?
Yeah.
And then it's like, when do you start re-infrastructuring to go to the next one? Because again, those nexus points are like, you hit the point where what you don't want to do is go past it, where you're like, which we did when we first started Fitness Sales Sniper. Mm-hmm. All this revenue, no infrastructure.
Yeah. But
then your business is a shell.
And then we're just like, what the fuck happened? Because we didn't catch on because we didn't know.
Yeah.
You say that. I'm sure people who have been through this process before, have run $100 million companies, have that all documented and understand it, don't need to use gut feel. But they probably did until they got to that point.
Yeah, I've never read a book that talks about it.
There's not enough.
It's like
to warrant writing one.
The infrastructure conundrum. You know what I mean?
Maybe we'll write a book.
Yeah, it's like, how much do you back yourself? And so, like, kind of going back to those nexus points, it's like those points that you guys are seeing. If you're a sales rep, is you're where the business is doing this.
Yeah,
it's because it will go up. Right. So let's say it's 300. You get it to 350, 375.
Stalls.
And the delivery mechanisms fall away. And then you get refunds and you get people pulling out because the program sucks. And then it goes down to 250. That self-equalizes because that's really where the business should be, or if it's really comfortable. Yeah. Like your business doesn't want to be more than like 80% capacity. Mm-hmm. Right? Like at gyms, we used to always say a gym needs to run like 80% capacity. Yep. If it's 100% capacity, it is disgusting. There's too many people. It's too crazy. 80% is perfect.
It's crowded,
right?
And people start leaving.
And then you go down, all of a sudden you're running at this 70, 80% capacity. And then that brings it back up to here, which is like the red line, which is that 300K or whatever it may be, right? And so it's like, and that's the same with 25, 50, 100. So what you guys are seeing, it's like if you're a business owner and you're kind of experiencing that, then potentially you're just not operationally infrastructured, right? Comment operations if you guys want help with that. and we can do more videos about it or reach out to you about some of the stuff that we do about it. We took on a guy called Spencer Burnett who built out a lot of that stuff for us, like did a physical build out, and it changed our business.
If you're watching Spence, you're an absolute genius. So
yeah, Spencer is a legit savant.
Yeah.
So anyway,
let's go back to that 30K mark, right?
I just want to do one thing real quick. Is if you're a sales rep, right, and you're experiencing this, like where the business is just doing that, that business is never going to go past there, right? Unless you see either consultants come in or you see some big key hires for like expensive people that are not VAs.
Yeah.
Right. Then you know if it's been there for 6 months, 12 months, it's never going to change. There might be months at 400 months, like, you know what I mean? So you got to go, okay, this is the max I'm getting here. I either get real comfortable here and figure out how I can make a bit more money or whatever, or you go, okay, this is the max of this opportunity. I want to look for something else.
Yeah. I think like a good way to tie that up is perspective. So that business, you're at 30K, right? Typically in that position, you're a sole director, owner, operator.
Like a one-man agency or something.
One-man agency. You've got a handful, maybe 5 to 6 clients. You're in charge of taking all the sales calls. You're in charge of delivery. You're in charge of building things. Working your ass off, doing those 18-hour days in that hustle mode, because whilst we probably
laptop lifestyle, baby.
While we shit on that, there is a phase in business where you have to do it because the only way to get through to that next stage, whilst being able to afford things, is by you taking on all that responsibility.
We did it, man.
Yeah.
We did literally everything.
We did.
Yeah. And now we make Marco do everything.
Yeah. So thank you guys. And that's what happens when you go through those hard yards. You get rewarded at the end, right? So you're at that stage where...
Well, as long as you're willing to go back to zero, right? So like afford that.
Yeah.
And then when me and you brought... Yeah, when me and you brought Marco on, we sort of couldn't afford that either.
And we paid him more than we paid ourselves just to be like, this is the guy. We have to have him. We're going to have to give something up here.
Exactly.
Most business owners wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's the resetting. It's the willing to reset.
Yeah.
And the willing to go, okay, I'm making this much now. To bring this guy on, I'm now going to sink down to this much. Yep. I'll just do it myself. And that's where there's a lot of stall points.
Yeah.
Or you try and go really cheap, where it's like there has to be an element of like, as a business owner, there has to be somewhat of a leap of faith moment, or a lot of leap of faith moments where
more than one.
Yeah, where you go, I will back myself to make this work.
Yeah, and we're about to take more of them as well.
Yeah,
you know, but
I mean the bills that we're getting from accounting firms and stuff is
starting quote of 70,000 for lawyers on company restructure. It's like, okay,
okay,
cool, great,
cool story.
You must be good.
Yeah.
But so like you're in that position, you can't really. You have to run the marketing as well. You can't afford an agency to do it whilst being able to. You know, you can't afford a sales thing. So you got to break through that cycle. At some stage, you're going to have to take the leap of faith to one, either hand off delivery, hand off marketing, or hand off sales. You claw your time back, then all of a sudden you've got the freedom because you've handed that off, provided they perform, which is scary because you don't know if they will, to take that next step and start building infrastructure for that next level, which is creeping up to that $100,000 a month mark.
Yeah, exactly. So
then you're onto a whole new set of problems.
Yeah. Then it becomes about, hiring becomes a real issue.
Yeah. And like by that, you've solved those problems. You got through that nexus point. You get to that 150K a month mark. And all of a sudden now you've got some sales guys. You've got probably a couple of VAs at that stage or somebody doing administration work for you.
Fractional COOs are really, I think, really good.
Well.
You know what I mean? So like, you can't do anything without consistent sales and marketing.
Cannot.
Like you need consistency. Doesn't have to be stellar, but consistent sales and marketing. And you need multi-channel marketing.
Yes.
Like you have to have you cannot effectively grow a business with single channel marketing. Yeah. You can have a successful, like I know a few businesses that do like $500,000 a month and they only have one marketing channel, but would I consider that a good business?
Would you consider
No, I would not.
Would you consider it there in 3 years?
No, definitely not.
Exactly.
Like now, is that person doing it for that? And again, this is where like choice, I like to understand the business owner's choices. And this has helped me as a sales rep when I could understand the business owner that I was selling for, or if we're doing done for you sales, or for consulting, whatever it may be. Understanding their thought process is really important because like some people think they want to scale to the moon, but they really don't. And that's fine. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you can run a 200K a month business and take out 100K, mate, go
Happy
for
days.
it. Right. Actually, one of the acquisitions that we're recently doing, that's basically the goal.
Yeah.
Is let's just get it to where it pumps out the most amount of money possible with the least amount of input, and let's just run that autopilot, right?
Exactly.
So like let's have everyone make a bunch of money. You know, like what's the threshold, right? Like what's the number where it's maximum profitability for minimum input?
Yeah.
Like because below that it's not worth it. Above that it's not too hard, but it's like we then again we have to over infrastructure. So it's like before we get back to that same level of profit, we now have to increase by X amount, which is like, okay, now we need more sales, more this. It's like, what's the number?
And speaking of that, the number is really important because we want to get it to that point where it's just before it goes into one of those nexus points.
80% capacity.
Right, 80% capacity, because that is when profit margin is the highest and we have every intention to sell that company for a good multiple. And you get the highest multiple based on EBITDA or profit margin.
Yeah.
And
it's actually, I asked this question the other day, consistency is the most, it's not the number, right? It's not like level of profitability, profit margins.
That's consistent, yeah.
It's just the consistency. So it's like, how do we get that business to be autopiloted to where it's making, say, $250,000 to $300,000 a month regularly, consistently, with a great profit margin or an acceptable profit margin, but it's the same every month and it doesn't move. And that way you can sell that thing and go, hey, this is how much this thing's worth. Look how consistent it is. We don't do a thing. Do you want it?
Yep. And it's
give me 3 times revenue. I'm out of here.
It's exactly right. Like 6% profit margin, $250K a month, consistent for 4 months, bang up for sale.
Yeah.
Highest evaluation possible. Yeah. Okay. Then at 100K months, you probably have a single channel of marketing. You've got sales guys that are doing okay. You're managing, you've cycled through probably multiple media managers and
yeah. So you bought so you're at 100K a month, right? So you have single channel consistent marketing usually. So what you need to do is focus on multi-channel marketing, right? And then gearing up for how much delivery you want to have.
Yeah.
So what I would be focusing is I was like, okay, how do I get my 80% capacity to be a lot more than what it is? Mm-hmm. What can I reasonably expect from a second or third channel? Yep. How do I start to create branding awareness? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's funny. I was talking to Tay today and he was the vegan trainer and all that kind of stuff. Great social media presence. He literally had the exact same marketing strategy that we did, which is just awareness ads.
Brand, yeah.
And he got to $800,000 a month in his coaching business, right? With just awareness ads. So the strategy is the same strategy we did at Sales Sniper. And I think we've talked about it, where we have a series of value videos and then you watch one value video, then you get targeted with another one. If you watch that one, you go to another one, that one, go to another one, that one, go to another. And it goes like 6 or 7 videos deep. And then the only people who get sent an offer are the people who have watched all those videos. Now we don't have an offer to sell, right? So
unless you want someone to do your sales for you.
Right. So yeah. Or like consult or whatever. So we do have stuff, but like it's not really offers that we put out.
Scalable stuff, right?
Yeah.
In any sense.
Yeah. It's not like there's no point doing marketing.
Yeah.
Right. Like we get enough inquiries and that's why we do the podcast. That's why we have the YouTube channel. That's why we have the Closing Code Facebook group is to like, and why my Facebook, it's to establish our Instagram, to establish, hey, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then from there, we get enough inquiries to where like we've never been short of clients, right?
Yeah.
And we have a great referral network through our current clients and the marketing companies that we work with because we do a good job and the marketing companies feed us a lot of clients. Like we have 4 or 5 marketing companies that just throw clients at us.
Yeah. So at that like 100, 150K mark, you need to start looking at hiring an operator.
Yep.
That can take over majority of that responsibility. Then you probably need a sales manager that can manage that team to get the best out of them.
Or an external one, which we do as well.
Yeah. Or and as well with the media, You need to start getting that dialed in so that the sales team can cope and have that operator focus on the delivery systems.
And you want to have a great project management system in place.
Yeah.
That really helped us. Like we tripled last year.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, the reason why that was able is because of some of those
Systems and processes.
real back end nitty gritty, which I don't even look at.
Yeah.
I assume they're good, but I've never logged in.
Oh, they're pretty good. And they're excellent, actually. So,
but they have to be because I'm never going to log in.
yeah, and that's
everyone knows this.
Is what it is, right?
It is what it is. I wish I could sit here and say, yes, I will do that, but it would just be a bald-faced lie.
Yeah.
And I'm good at some things, and I'm not good at other things.
That's for sure. Aren't we all, right? Then you get up to like that 350K a month mark, and that's when you probably need those sales, almost like a CMO role where you've got someone looking after marketing, someone looking after sales, and getting the best out of it so there's no leaky buckets. The delivery has to be absolutely on point with the back-end operations, and then you need to start hiring a financial controller, probably not a CFO at that stage, as someone that can manage the books, because chances are you're up on tax at that level, and you need someone to take over that responsibility and make sure that now you're hiring at a high level. You need those processes, you need those insurances in place, because the liabilities start to stack up where you probably should have had it earlier, but you didn't realize until now. Most likely.
Exactly.
Sort of from, not necessarily speaking from experience, but experienced enough to see, on average, a lot of our clients make those mistakes when they do consulting and talk through problems with us.
Yeah.
I mean, we've made definitely some of them.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that gives enough of an insight as to Nexus points. There you go, guys.
Nexus. All right, guys, if you like this kind of content,
Comment
make sure
Nexus.
you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that kind of good stuff. Head on over to our website, salesniper.net, if you want to work with us, work for us. There's I'm sure we'll have some, if you want us to do your sales for you, or you want us to consult about that, you can go to crushsales.net. There's a little calculator there. You can kind of figure out how we're doing and what we're doing. And
Awesome.
crushsales.net.
Buy some merch. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Managers and things, because none
You
of
bought
it.
a Corvette.
I want to buy a Corvette.
The new ones are dope.
Matte
Yeah,
black.
satin black.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'll look good.
Yeah. And Sammy's new car gets here, the new Vogue,
Cool.
new Vogue, the big daddy.
Anyway, we just went off topic.
Anyway, yeah, so